Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 in the morning on a lovely Wednesday morning. Today we are going to draw this little zombie. That is what we pulled out of the Random Object Randomogrifier. So that is what we're going to draw today. We're going to draw, it says Rising Zombie is what it's called. There are no more specifics given to that. It has some challenges. There's some texture in the rib cage. There's some texture in the grave site. So it has some challenges to knock out on a Wednesday morning. I'm just very thankful we didn't pull it out of the box on a Tuesday morning, because I usually have to leave early for a meeting on Tuesday mornings. So there is the added benefit of it being a Wednesday morning. The only thing that would have made it better is if it had been a Saturday or Sunday morning, and I wouldn't feel stressed at all about the time. But you know, the whole thing about this is we have to limit it to 30 minutes. We can't just let this drag on and on. The whole point is to get this done in 30 minutes. Another challenge is that we have to make sure the composition fits on the page, because it's long. We want to make sure the composition fits on the page. We want to make sure that it fits on the page where it's supposed to fit on the page. And it has a really nice dark shadow there on the back side of it, so it is easy to make this oversized. But I hope everybody's Wednesday is starting out as well as mine did. I've been having a really good day so far. I have coffee, I have friends to art with, I have a zombie to draw. I mean, honestly, how does it get any better than that? Hey, Ivy. I was just asking myself, how could it get any better? And then here comes Ivy, making it better already. But I spent way too much time yesterday reading up about zombies. If one could actually spend too much time reading about zombies, because that's the part of it that I really get a kick out of, is the learning part of it. So it turns out of course, there's been stories of the dead rising for, as long as there's been people, because people always want their loved ones to come back, or they're afraid their enemies are going to come back, or where they hear spooky sounds in the woods and they think it's somebody trying to eat them. That kind of stuff has been around as long as there's been people. But the first reference to the dead rising in a true ghoulish sense is the Epic of Gilgamesh, when Ishtar has an unrequited love and she threatens to raise an army of the dead to kill all of the rising, kill all of the living, if her love is not returned, if her love interest is not reciprocated. That's Babylonian, and that's about 6,000 years ago. And when I told my daughter about this, I was telling girl 2 about this last night. I said, yeah, Gilgamesh has an unrequited love, so she's going to raise an army of the dead and destroy everybody if her love is not returned. And my daughter says, as one does, you know. As one does. But then you fast forward about 3,000 years, and you get Ezekiel, who is in exile in, of all places, Babylon, where he might have been exposed to the epic of, especially because he was a scholar and a learned man, he would have been exposed to the Epic of Gilgamesh. So likely had heard stories of the dead rising. But in his version, they're not ghoulish. God commands him in a vision to prophesy to a field of dry bones. And the dry bones begin to flesh up and come alive in response to the command of God. Still the rising of the dead, but different purpose, not a ghoulish purpose. Ivy says she may not be sketching every day, but she is coloring every day now, which means her finger is on the mend, and that's good news, Ivy. That's good news. Ivy was bitten by a cat and almost lost her finger. And I can't tell that story without thinking of cat scratch fever, which I'm sure is disrespectful. But I still think it's funny. All right. I don't know how much detail I'm going to put on this. I do need to make sure this says RIP. Rest in peace. Where were we? Ezekiel? And so the next but we don't really hear them spoken of as zombies until the 60s, when the horror industry comes out. She says she's going to have it's going to have a very unusual fingerprint for the rest of her life. Yeah, you'll have to make sure and wear one of those little latex finger gloves on that finger so you won't get identified in crime. There are mentions of zombies in many stories, many stories of the dead rising. I mean, you have the Celtics with their Samhain holiday, which is the origin of Halloween. Which, you know, when I saw that this is what the toy was going to be this morning, all I could think was, man, I wish I'd set that aside for Halloween. But this is actually a collection of zombies from the Safari Limited tubes. One of these days, I'm going to have like 10,000 subscribers on this show, And I'm going to call Tubes up and say, hey, let's work together. In the Northern European segments, they didn't call them zombies, they called them revenants. And these were people that they had unfinished business, if you will. They were mad about something. They were mad about the way they were killed. They were mad about the way they were remembered at their funeral services. They were mad about how they were buried. They weren't buried deep enough. They weren't given a proper send-off. And if you look at this guy, you can see that his upper body is about 60 degrees to the dirt, which means he is not climbing up out of a 6-foot hole. He is sitting up out of a shallow grave, which is exactly the kind of thing that would have caused the making of a revenant in the Celtic world. So maybe that's why he's a zombie, is because they didn't bury him deep enough. But we'll never know, because he's not a reference to a revenant. He's a reference to the 1968 movie, Night of the Living Dead. It doesn't say that on the bottom. On the bottom it says Rising Zombie. This version of a zombie from Night of the Living Dead originates with voodoo in Haiti, where a medicine man, necromancer, can cause, we didn't spritz the watercolors, man, where a necromancer can cause a zombie to be formed out of a corpse, out of a person. And nobody wants that because it's a creepy thing. But when they did it, dun, 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 when they did it, it was to make a slave. Necromancers raised zombies as slaves, not as flesh eaters. Not as something to go around eating people's brains. That's a relatively new development. And it's actually from a comedy in 1985. Return of the Living Dead or something like that. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the comedy. But it's not from the 60s movie, and it's certainly not from the historical trope of zombies. It is something from the 1985 movie, making fun of the 60s movie. The shadow on the headstone looks like E.T. Bang out. But and the reason they ate brains in that movie is because it supposedly made them hurt less, made the pain go away, the pain of death, the pain of remembering. And then what was the name of that movie with the teenagers where he ate the boy's brain and got all the boy's memories and remembered love, and the love kind of cured him, the memory of love kind of cured him of his zombiness. Still a parody of the 1960s movies, but equally entertaining. But the fact that he's rising from the grave like this is what makes him reminiscent of a revenant. Like I said, I learned entirely too much about zombies yesterday. That shadow has already gotten away from me. We'll be alright. We'll be alright. It'll dry light. Let's see, what else did I learn about zombies? Even in the 1968 movie, they didn't call them zombies, they called them ghouls. Night of the Living Dead, they called them ghouls. They didn't call them zombies. That came later. Nice little bluesy riff. Sometimes when I hit this part of it right here, I kind of like it, and I want to just stay right there. I don't want to go any further. Sometimes I feel like just a little gray wash is all it needed to be complete. Yeah, sometimes I get this far and I think, man, that looks good. I should just leave it right there. And I think since we have two of these little notebooks, I think I'll finish this notebook out in color like I've been doing. But I think I'm going to do the next one in grayscale. Alright, we're going to start the heater dryer for just a minute here. Whoa. Copy. Okay. All right, we're going to add a little rose to the skeleton, give it kind of a fleshy blood color to it. Where were we? Rising zombies. Did anybody see? I mean, there's lots of zombie movies out there, but the one that traumatized me, like World War Z was good. I liked that, but that didn't traumatize me. The one that traumatized me was Serpent of the Rainbow. And I hesitate to talk too much about zombies because I know there are at least four other zombies in the randomogrifier, and I don't want to run out of things to say about zombies, but you know, there's a really good chance that I'm not going to pull those zombies from the mix for months and months and months, and we can talk more about zombies then too. My salt shaker still out here? No. Oh yeah, it is. Humidity. I don't know that that'll do any good. We'll see. We're almost done. Almost finished. Only thing left to do is to ink it as soon as the color dries. But if you saw Serpent of the Rainbow, especially like I did, as a sensitive young man, if you will. I'm sensitive. It was very traumatizing because this guy's in Haiti and he gets crossway with the local voodoo chief, and the local voodoo chief blows a powder into his face and he loses control of his senses. And starts following simple suggestions of what the powder initially lowers all of his living responses to make him appear dead to the local medical examiner. Man, don't you love watching paint dry? I can't tell you. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, just ecstatic at the idea of not only watching paint dry, but sharing the paint drying experience with my art buddies. Anyway, once the medical examiner pronounces him dead, they of course bury him, and then he eventually wakes back up. But when he wakes up, he is disoriented and his mind doesn't work the way minds are supposed to work, and he like I said, ends up following the simple suggestions given to him by the necromancer. And the thing about that movie is, it is based on a true story. Now, what does that mean, based on a true story? One would simply think that it means that it really happened. But we have to keep in mind, we're talking about the time period where the people who wrote the Amityville Horror said that that was based on a true story. So they later recanted. But that doesn't mean it didn't terrify a generation of us, worried that our house walls would start bleeding and telling us to get out of our own house. Get out. So the timing of Serpent of the Rainbow, we were all very impressionable. Skeletons always look like they're smiling, like they're so happy. We used to watch, when the kids were little, we would watch CSI or Bones or something. And that was how we stopped them from being afraid. When they would show the dead people, we'd say, "Look, don't be afraid. Look how happy they are. I mean, just look how happy they are." That's what we would do every time they got scared. And you only have to do that once or twice, then they don't get scared anymore. All right. What is today? Today is the 4th of June, no less. All right. So first off, let's compare it to the picture that was provided. The details on the face kind of got lost. I wonder if I turn that light on, if that would help. Oh no, that's quite bright. The details on the face kind of got lost. But let's see if we can get a good shot from my perspective. All right, let's see here. Do. Oh shoot, that's not even the right format. That's Instagram format. Yeah, that's right. All right, now we can see it. Now you can kind of see it better from my perspective. And if the screen would light up. Yeah, the face got kind of lost, but the overall image came out pretty well, I think. So anyway, that's what we got today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you learned a little bit about the history of zombies, especially in pop culture. You know that I enjoy doing this every morning. We get down here at 5:30 every morning. We do a live drawing of a random object, and we talk a little bit about the facts and the science and nature and history and pop culture. That's a lot of stuff to talk about. YouTube has no idea what to do with me because there's an algorithm that's supposed to push this out to what people like, and it's like people like art, people like sketching and daily inspiration, people like history and science and nature, and finding that niche of people that likes it all. I mean, I know there's 8 billion people in the world. There are millions of Renaissance people that like all of that stuff, and we just need to reach out to them. So tell your friends. If you're watching this show, if you made it this far, you obviously enjoyed it. Tell your friends. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. I look forward to it every day. Be sure and join me tomorrow morning. Same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel. And then we dance. We dance until somebody says they see me dancing, because that way we know that the lag has caught up with the stream and I won't be